The mysterious encounter. Sam's heart raced as the hum of the spaceship echoed around him. His mission was simple, a routine survey of a remote section of space. But as he gazed at the quiet, starry expanse outside the ship's observation window, something felt off. The usual stillness of deep space was disturbed by an unfamiliar signal. It wasn't part of his normal communications channel, and it wasn't just static. It was a transmission, one that didn't belong to anything human. His fingers hovered over the controls, deciding whether to investigate. The code was strange, too advanced for any Earth technology. Sam had been trained for moments like this, moments of uncertainty, when every decision mattered. He couldn't ignore it. Maybe it's nothing, Sam muttered to himself. But even as he said it, he knew it was far more than that. He set his course toward the source of the transmission, feeling the weight of his decision in his gut. The ship's lights flickered as he adjusted his course. His mind raced through possibilities. Was it a satellite? A rogue space probe? Or could it be something else? Hours later, Sam's ship drifted toward the origin of the signal, and that's when he saw it. A massive, sleek alien vessel, drifting aimlessly in space. It looked like nothing Sam had ever seen before. Its shape was elegant, almost fluid, like a creature made of metal and light. His breath caught in his throat. The vessel was damaged, its surface scarred, with smoke drifting from small sections of the hull. It was a silent wreck in the vastness of space, alone and abandoned. Who, or what? Sam whispered under his breath, a chill running down his spine. As a seasoned astronaut, he'd encountered space debris before, but nothing like this. His hand trembled slightly as he reached for the comms panel. But then, he hesitated. There was no signal coming from the ship, no distress call. It was as if the alien craft had simply been left to drift. Curiosity outweighed caution, and Sam prepared his ship to dock with the alien vessel. As his ship attached itself to the hull of the strange craft, a sense of unease washed over him. The quietness of space seemed to grow even deeper, pressing in on him. He couldn't explain it. There was something about this ship that didn't sit right with him. Inside, everything was dark. The low hum of the alien ship's life support systems barely reached his ears, and the air felt strangely cold, like the warmth had been drained from the room. Sam slowly activated his flashlight and scanned the surroundings. The walls were covered in alien symbols, no language he recognized. The design was elegant but disorienting, as if the very structure of the ship had been built with a purpose Sam couldn't understand. He moved cautiously through the narrow, dimly lit corridors, his footsteps echoing in the silence. His senses were on high alert. The ship felt alive in a way that his own never did, almost like it was watching him, waiting for something. Suddenly, in one of the rooms ahead, he saw it, a figure lying motionless on the floor. Sam's heart skipped a beat. He rushed forward, unsure of what he'd find. As he entered the room, he paused. The figure on the floor wasn't human. The creature before him was alien, with skin that shimmered in shades of blue and silver. Its features were delicate but strange. Large eyes, no visible mouth, and long flowing hair that seemed to have a life of its own. Sam knelt beside the being, unsure of what to do. It was unconscious, its body unresponsive. For a moment, he thought it was dead, but then he noticed the faint rise and fall of its chest. It was alive, but barely. Sam's mind raced. Should he try to help? Should he call for backup? But then he remembered. This wasn't part of his mission. He was alone. And yet, he couldn't just leave it there. Something about the creature called to him. Something deep inside him whispered that he had to help. He couldn't ignore it. He reached out to gently touch the creature's arm. It was cool to the touch, its skin smooth but oddly resilient. As his fingers brushed against it, the alien's eyes flickered open, revealing the deep, glowing light within them. Sam froze, staring back into those alien eyes. They seemed to reach right through him, and for a moment, he felt a connection. It was as if the creature knew him, knew everything about him, and yet it was still a stranger. The alien's hand twitched, reaching up to grasp Sam's. Its fingers were soft, but strong, holding him in a way that made his heart race. It whispered something, words Sam couldn't understand, but the tone was unmistakable. Fear, confusion, pain. Without thinking, Sam lifted the creature into his arms, cradling it carefully. He had to get it back to his ship, to safety. He didn't know who or what this being was, but it was clear that it needed him. Sam had never imagined his mission would turn into this, rescuing an alien, someone from another world, another reality. And yet, here he was, the fate of someone from beyond the stars in his hands. Just as he turned to leave the room, a strange symbol on the alien's wrist began to glow faintly, casting an eerie light across the room. Sam stopped in his tracks. His breath caught. What was happening? What did this symbol mean? And more importantly, who was this being, and why had it chosen him? The silence of the ship deepened as Sam carefully carried the alien out of the wreckage, the mystery of their encounter just beginning. The questions were only starting, but one thing was certain. Sam's life would never be the same again. The alien awakens. Sam floated in the dim light of his ship, cradling the unconscious alien being. His mind was a whirlwind of questions. Who was she? Where had she come from? And why had she ended up here, stranded on a dying vessel? He'd never imagined such an encounter during his training. But now, with the creature in his arms, everything he'd known about space exploration seemed small and insignificant. He secured her carefully in the medical bay of his ship, placing her gently onto the examination table. The hum of the ship's medical systems kicked in, scanning her vitals and administering a basic scan of her condition. Sam tried to focus on the task at hand, but his eyes kept drifting to the alien's strange features. The soft, silver-blue glow from her skin seemed to pulse, as if she were still alive in ways that were beyond his understanding. For a moment, all was still. Then, as if on cue, her body tensed. Sam stepped back, his pulse quickening. The alien's eyelids fluttered, then snapped open. Her eyes were an intense shade of violet, glowing faintly with an internal light. For a second, Sam could only stare into those deep, luminous orbs. They were full of emotion, fear, confusion, and something else. Something ancient. Sam's breath hitched, unsure of how to react. He was staring at an alien, a being from a world far beyond anything he had ever imagined. And somehow, in this moment, he felt a connection. The alien's lips parted as she inhaled sharply, her chest rising in an attempt to draw in air. She gasped, the sound raw and panicked. Sam moved forward, his hand instinctively reaching for her shoulder, but she recoiled, her body tense as if startled. A low, almost melodic sound escaped her throat, an alien language that Sam couldn't even begin to understand. It was sharp yet fluid, as though her words were more like music than speech. Her violet eyes met his again, wide with panic. She reached out, grabbing Sam's arm with surprising strength. Her touch was cool and firm, sending an electric jolt through his body. There was something about her presence that seemed to make the air crackle, something that both frightened and fascinated him. Sam struggled to keep his composure as the alien woman's grip tightened around his arm. "Who are you?" Sam stammered, his voice cracking under the weight of the situation. He couldn't even begin to comprehend what he was seeing, let alone how to communicate with her. She gazed at him, her eyes blinking rapidly as if trying to process the words. Suddenly, she withdrew her hand, letting it hover over her chest, where a strange symbol pulsed faintly beneath her skin. It was the same symbol that had glowed when Sam first touched her, the one on her wrist. As the light from it intensified, the air in the room seemed to shimmer, vibrating with an otherworldly energy. Sam stepped back, watching in awe as the symbol seemed to shift and grow, like a living entity responding to some internal command. The alien woman made a soft, strained sound, pointing to her chest, then to Sam, and then back to the strange mark. Her gestures were unpracticed, but there was no mistaking the urgency in her movements. She was trying to communicate something important. Sam's mind raced as he processed her gestures. Could this be some sort of identification, a sign of who she was? But before he could ponder any further, the ship's medical system beeped, alerting him to a critical situation. Sam turned to see a holographic map of the galaxy displayed on the medical screen. It was filled with strange, intricate patterns, some of which Sam recognized as asteroid belts, while others were completely alien to him. A large, dark mass loomed in the corner of the screen. Something big. Something terrifying. Sam, still unsure of how to respond, hesitated. Silara, where are you from? What's happening? Why did you come to Earth? Silara's gaze softened, and for the first time, Sam saw a flicker of vulnerability in her eyes. She placed her hand over the glowing symbol on her wrist once more, and as she did, the room seemed to darken, the lights dimming, until all that was left was the soft glow of the symbol. Slowly, almost reverently, she began to speak again, her voice low but filled with a quiet power. I am the last of my kind. Silara began, her voice carrying a weight that Sam could feel deep in his chest. My people once ruled over a vast empire, an empire that spanned many worlds, far beyond what you can comprehend. We were creators, explorers, builders. Our civilization was unmatched in its brilliance. We knew the stars as you know the ground beneath your feet. Sam's mind was racing. He had expected this alien to be from another planet, but hearing her speak of an empire that spanned the stars, it was overwhelming. Your people, what happened to them? Sam asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Silara closed her eyes for a moment, her expression pained. They were destroyed. My ancestors were betrayed by those they trusted, by others who sought to control our power. The empire fell, and the survivors scattered to the far corners of the galaxy. We became shadows, hiding from those who hunted us. Sam could feel the heaviness of her words in his own chest. And you're the last one? He asked quietly. Yes, she replied, her voice trembling with grief. I was hidden away, kept safe in the hope that one day I would return to restore our legacy. But the enemies of my people never stopped searching. And now they have found me. Sam took a step forward, his heart pounding. What does that symbol on your wrist mean? Why does it keep glowing? Silara's gaze flickered toward her wrist, and she sighed deeply. It is a mark of my bloodline, she explained. A symbol of my family, of those who once ruled. It holds the key to the greatest treasure my people left behind. A weapon that can stop the cosmic storm that now threatens your world. Sam's mind spun. A weapon that could stop the storm. He had thought the storm was just a warning, an impending disaster, but now it seemed to be something much more. He opened his mouth to ask more questions, but Silara raised her hand, silencing him. There is more, she said, her voice growing more serious. The symbol is not just a mark of my lineage. It is a map, one that leads to a hidden vault, buried deep in the heart of the galaxy. This vault contains the only weapon capable of stopping the storm, but it is not easy to find. It has been lost for centuries, hidden away to protect it from those who would misuse it. Silara paused, her eyes locking onto Sam's. I cannot reach it alone. I need you, Sam, she said, her voice pleading. You are the only one who can help me unlock its power. The enemies who destroyed my people are coming for it, and for me. They want to use the weapon for themselves. If they get their hands on it, they will destroy everything. Sam felt a chill run through him. The storm, the mysterious map, the strange symbol, it was all coming together. The alien woman was not just a lost traveler, but the last hope of her entire species. And now, their fate was intertwined. You're asking me to help you find this vault and stop a war? Sam asked, his voice barely above a whisper. His mind was racing. He was a simple astronaut, a scientist, an explorer. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't prepared for this. Silara's gaze softened again. I understand that this is overwhelming, but you have a choice. You can walk away, return to your life, and pretend none of this ever happened. But if you do, the storm will destroy Earth, and I will die. My people will be lost forever, and the weapon will fall into the wrong hands. Sam's mind was a whirlwind. He couldn't walk away. Not now. Something inside him told him that the path he was about to take would change everything, not just for him, but for the entire universe. But he couldn't do it alone. He would need to trust Silara, and in return, she would need to trust him. Taking a deep breath, Sam nodded. I'll help you, he said, but we're going to need a plan. We need to get to this vault, and we need to do it before your enemies catch up to us. Silara smiled faintly, the first hint of hope Sam had seen in her expression since their encounter. I knew you would help, she said. The vault is hidden, and only those of my bloodline can access it. But with your help, we may just have a chance. As Sam looked at her, he realized that he wasn't just helping an alien. He was standing at the precipice of something far larger. He had no idea where this journey would lead, but one thing was certain. The future of two worlds now rested in his hands. This part expands on the backstory of Silara and introduces key elements that will drive the plot forward, building a deeper connection between her and Sam while raising the stakes. Let me know if you want any changes or adjustments. Unlikely alliance. The hum of the ship's engines vibrated through Sam's body as he stared out of the cockpit's front window, watching the stars streak by. The galaxy was a vast expanse, full of untold mysteries, but none of those mysteries seemed as urgent as the one that had come into his life. Silara, the last of an ancient alien bloodline, had entrusted him with the task of saving not just her life, but the fate of Earth itself. Sam ran a hand through his hair, still trying to wrap his mind around everything that had happened. He was no soldier, no hero. He was just an astronaut who had signed up for a simple mission. But now, that simple mission had turned into something far more dangerous. The storm, the weapon, the enemies pursuing them. It was all overwhelming. Silara's voice broke through his thoughts, soft and serious. We are not safe here. The enemies of my people will come. They have spies everywhere. We need to leave this sector and find the vault, or it will be too late. Sam turned to look at her, still trying to process how much she had revealed to him in such a short time. The alien woman had been calm, almost regal, as she spoke of the empire her people once ruled, of their betrayal, and of the vault that held the only weapon capable of saving Earth. Her strength, her determination. It was like nothing he had ever seen before, but there was something else in her eyes now, something Sam hadn't seen before. Fear, vulnerability. Where do we go? Sam asked, his voice steady despite the storm of thoughts raging inside him. The vault is hidden on a planet called Vallith, Silara said, her eyes narrowing as she studied the stars outside. It is a place of great significance to my people. Only those with the blood of my lineage can enter, and it is protected by ancient defenses that have kept it hidden for centuries. But the enemies I told you about, they know of it. They are already looking for us. Sam frowned. So, we're racing against time. Silara nodded. Yes, the storm that threatens your world is not natural. It is being guided by the enemies who seek to destroy what remains of my people's legacy. They want to harness the weapon in the vault, and they will stop at nothing to get it. As she spoke, Sam couldn't help but feel the weight of her words. The storm wasn't just a random event. It was a weapon, too. A force that could wipe out entire civilizations, and it was being controlled by beings who had already destroyed Silara's people. The stakes were far higher than Sam had ever imagined. But we're just two people, Sam said, shaking his head. We don't have enough resources to fight an entire army. How are we supposed to stop them? Silara turned to him, her violet eyes glowing with a fierce determination. We may be few, but we have something they do not. The bond between us. You and I, Sam, we are connected. The symbol on my wrist, your touch activated it. That bond is our strength. It will guide us, protect us, and if we are fortunate, it will help us find the vault. Sam wasn't sure what she meant, but he could feel it, this unspoken connection between them, a tether that had formed from the moment he touched her wrist. He wasn't sure if it was the alien technology, the strange energy between them, or something else, but it was there. And for the first time, Sam wondered if this bond could actually be the key to their survival. "I don't know how this will work," Sam said, his voice quiet. "But if you think we have a chance, I'll follow you. I'll do whatever it takes." Silara's lips curved into a small, almost imperceptible smile. "I knew you would say that," she replied softly. "You are more than just an astronaut. Sam, you have the heart of a protector. That's why you're here with me now." They exchanged a long look, and in that moment, Sam realized how much he had already changed. When he'd first encountered Silara, he'd felt fear, uncertainty. Now, standing beside her, he could feel the weight of the responsibility settling on his shoulders. They were in this together. There was no turning back. The ship's systems chimed, bringing Sam back to the present. He glanced at the controls and noticed a faint blip on the radar. Something, or someone, was approaching. He narrowed his eyes, instinctively reaching for the comms panel. "Someone's following us," he said, his voice tense. Silara's gaze hardened. "We cannot allow them to catch us. We have no choice but to leave this sector." Sam's fingers flew over the controls, adjusting their course toward a nearby asteroid field. The rocks were dense and unpredictable, a perfect place to hide. The ship's engines roared as they powered up, hurtling them toward the rocky maze. But even as he navigated the ship, Sam knew they were not alone. The enemies were out there, closing in. Silara moved to the side of the cockpit, her hands gracefully interacting with the ship's alien interface. She was familiar with the technology, a comfort that Sam couldn't help but envy. He wasn't entirely sure what she was doing, but he trusted her. Her presence in the cockpit felt reassuring, like she was a guide leading him through the storm. "We will be safe here, for now," Silara said, her voice calm, though Sam could see the tension in her posture. "The asteroid field will mask our signature, but we do not have much time. We must be swift." As the ship weaved between the jagged rocks, Sam stole a glance at Silara. Despite the chaos around them, she seemed unshaken, focused. She was a survivor, a leader, and Sam realized that if they were going to make it out of this alive, he would need to trust her completely. "So what happens next?" Sam asked, his voice low as they navigated the asteroid field. Silara's eyes never left the controls. "Next, we make our way to Vallith. But getting there won't be easy. The enemies will be watching every move we make, and we cannot afford any mistakes." Sam nodded. The weight of the mission had never been clearer. He was no longer just a passenger in this adventure. He was an integral part of the journey. He would need to rely on everything he had ever learned, not just about space travel, but about survival, trust, and fighting for something bigger than himself. And in that moment, Sam knew that their bond wasn't just a matter of circumstance. It was a force, one that would carry them through the darkest of times. Betrayal among the stars. The ship's engines hummed steadily, the quiet sound a constant companion as Sam steered the craft deeper into the vastness of space. The asteroid field was behind them, the jagged rocks now a distant memory. Sam glanced at the controls. Everything appeared normal, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. It wasn't just the lurking threat of Silara's enemies. There was an unsettling tension in the air, the kind of tension that clung to you, like a storm cloud on the horizon, waiting to break. Beside him, Silara sat in complete silence, her fingers grazing the controls, her focus unwavering. He had grown accustomed to her calm, even regal demeanor, but today there was a subtle shift in her presence. Her eyes were distant, her lips pressed in a tight line. Sam had seen the same look before, when someone was keeping a secret. "What's going on?" Sam asked, his voice low but firm. "You've been distant. Is something wrong?" Silara turned to look at him, her violet eyes flickering with something hard to identify. She hesitated for a moment before answering, her voice quiet but filled with an edge he hadn't noticed before. "We're not as alone as we think, Sam," she said, her gaze darting toward the window, as if expecting someone, or something, to appear. "I've been hiding from my enemies for too long. But there are others, people I once trusted." Sam frowned. "What do you mean?" "We've been running from their ships, but no one's been able to track us." "Right." Silara's expression darkened. "Not exactly. They are using stealth technology, too advanced for our systems to detect. But there's another problem, a human problem." Her words were heavy, her voice tinged with regret. Sam's heart skipped a beat. "What are you saying?" She took a deep breath, then spoke with a hardness that Sam had never heard before. "I was once part of a secret alliance, an underground group formed to resist the Empire's enemies. There were others like me, survivors of my people, humans who had sworn to help us. They promised they would protect me. But somewhere along the way, that trust was broken." The truth hit Sam like a punch to the gut. His own mind flashed back to the faces of his fellow astronauts, the crew he had trusted with his life, the team who had supported him through years of space missions. Could someone from his own people be a threat? Could one of them have betrayed them? Suddenly, the ship's warning system blared, sending a wave of panic through Sam. He glanced at the controls, heart racing, as the radar showed 2 blips closing in fast. 2 ships. They were approaching at an alarming speed, their signatures cloaked by advanced stealth technology. "See, Lara, we're being followed," Sam said, his voice tight. "Someone's here. They found us." Silara's face turned pale, the color draining from her cheeks as she looked out the window, her eyes narrowing. "I knew it," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "They've come for me. They found us." Sam's pulse quickened as the 2 ships emerged from the shadows of a nearby nebula, their sleek, dark shapes cutting through the void like predators. They moved with terrifying precision, surrounding Sam's ship on both sides, closing in from every direction. Silara's enemies were here, and they weren't wasting any time. "We need to get out of here now," Sam said, panic creeping into his voice. "Can we outrun them? Do you have a plan?" Silara's gaze never left the enemy ships, her expression calculating. "They've already tracked us here, Sam, and if we try to run, they'll follow us no matter where we go. We'll never make it to Vallith in time." Sam's mind raced. His options were limited, but then a dark thought crossed his mind. He glanced at Silara, his voice trembling with disbelief. "You said they were humans, right? Someone on the inside, someone we trusted." Silara's eyes flashed with pain and anger. "Yes," she hissed. "It was one of them. A traitor." Before Sam could respond, the comm system crackled to life. A distorted voice echoed through the ship, its tone mocking, cold. "This is Captain Rain of the Vindicator. Silara, you've run far enough. Surrender now, and we'll spare your life. Resist, and we'll take you by force." Sam's stomach twisted as he realized the voice belonged to a man he once called a friend. Captain Rain. Rain had been part of the same alliance Silara had once trusted, a man who had sworn to protect her. But now, he was the one hunting them down. The betrayal cut deeper than Sam could have imagined. Silara's face hardened, and her voice was steady, though Sam could hear the faintest tremor. "You always were a coward, Rain. I knew you would betray us. You don't understand what you're dealing with. The weapon in the vault. It's not for you. It will destroy you all." There was a brief silence on the other end of the line, and then Captain Rain's laughter filled the comms. "We'll see about that, Silara. Surrender now, and we'll make it quick. Otherwise, prepare for the consequences." Silara's hand clenched into a fist, her eyes burning with fury. "We cannot let them have the weapon, Sam. If they reach Vallith, it's over for all of us." Sam felt the weight of the situation settle around him like a suffocating cloud, betrayed by his own people, with Silara as the only ally he had left. They were surrounded, outnumbered, and their enemies were relentless. He looked at Silara, who was already preparing the ship's weapon systems, her fingers moving with a speed and precision Sam had never seen before. She was a fighter, a survivor, and now Sam had no choice but to fight alongside her. "All right," Sam said, his voice hardening. "We fight. We can't let them take us." Silara gave him a brief, appreciative glance. "That's the spirit, Sam. But don't think this will be easy. These traitors won't stop until they have what they want. But we have something they don't, a reason to fight." As the enemy ships closed in, Sam knew there was no turning back now. This wasn't just a battle for survival. It was a fight for everything Silara had lost, for the future of her people, and for the safety of Earth, the vault, and the final test. The moment Sam engaged the ship's emergency thrusters, the sound of the enemy ships closing in was deafening. They were relentless, far more skilled at pursuit than Sam had imagined. He and Silara had no time to lose. They had to get to Vallith. If they didn't reach the vault, the weapon that could save Earth would fall into the wrong hands, and their enemies would have the power to destroy everything Sam held dear. Silara's fingers flew over the controls as she navigated the ship through a narrow asteroid belt, forcing Sam to hold onto the edge of his seat. The ship's hull creaked under the strain of the evasive maneuvers, the enemy vessels shadowing them with terrifying precision. "We can't outrun them," Silara muttered, her voice barely audible over the roar of the engines. "They'll follow us no matter what. The only way to survive is to reach the vault and activate the weapon before they catch up." Sam's eyes darted to the viewport. A massive asteroid was heading straight for them, but Silara was already making adjustments to avoid it. It was a dangerous game, one that would have killed any ordinary crew. But Silara was no ordinary pilot. Her alien grace seemed to make every movement deliberate and precise. "Do you know where this vault is exactly?" Sam asked, his voice tinged with frustration and fear. "How will we even get in? You said only your bloodline can access it." Silara's expression was grave as she looked toward him, her violet eyes reflecting the light of the stars. "I know where it is, but getting inside won't be easy. The vault is protected by ancient security systems. Traps, puzzles, trials. Only those of my bloodline can pass them. And even then, the final test isn't just a physical one. It's a test of heart and mind." Sam swallowed hard. His hands tightened on the ship's controls as he glanced at the approaching enemy vessels. The time for questions was running out. "And you think I can help you?" "I'm not part of your bloodline, Silara. I'm not one of your people." Her eyes softened for a moment, but the seriousness in her tone remained. "I know, but the bond we share, our connection, it's stronger than you realize. You have a part to play in this. Your strength, your willingness to fight for something greater than yourself, that's what makes you essential. You've already proven that." Sam shook his head in disbelief. "But how? I don't even understand what this bond is, or how I'm supposed to help you activate the weapon." Silara reached out and placed her hand on his arm, her touch cool but steadying. "You will understand when the time comes. Trust in this connection between us. It's not just a link between our species. It's a shared purpose. Together, we can unlock the vault's secrets. But first, we have to survive." Just then, the enemy ships fired on them, their weapons lighting up the darkness like flashes of lightning. The ship rocked violently, sending Sam and Silara tumbling toward each other. Sam cursed under his breath as he regained control of the ship, pulling them into a sharp dive that sent the enemy ships careening off course. But they were still close, too close. "We can't keep this up for much longer," Sam said, his voice tight. "We need to make it to the planet. If we don't, Silara interrupted, her voice steely with determination. "We die here." The ship's sensors began to ping, signaling their approach to Vallith. It was a desolate, rocky planet, its surface scarred with the marks of ancient wars. There were no signs of life, just endless canyons and mountains, perfect for hiding a vault. Sam's heart pounded as he saw the planet grow larger in the viewport. Silara didn't hesitate. "We'll need to land near the vault's location. It's hidden beneath the surface, but the entrance is not easy to find. I can guide you there, but once we land, we're on foot. The final tests begin when we reach the entrance." Sam gritted his teeth, nodding. "Then we land. We don't have any other choice." The ship began its descent toward Vallith's surface, the gravity pulling them down with a force Sam hadn't anticipated. He adjusted the controls, trying to maintain a steady course as the planet's rocky surface loomed closer. Silara remained calm, her eyes scanning the horizon, her hand poised over a console that would guide them to the vault's hidden entrance. "We need to land in the valley to the east," Silara said, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. "It's the closest place to the vault's entrance. Once we land, we'll need to move quickly." Sam's fingers tightened on the controls as he lined up their descent with the valley. The ship's engines roared as they cut through the atmosphere, breaking through the thick clouds of dust that shrouded the planet. The ground below was rough, and Sam had to navigate the ship through a series of jagged cliffs. He could see the enemy ships in the distance, still pursuing, but they couldn't risk slowing down. Not now. As the ship touched down with a bone-rattling thud, Sam and Silara quickly began to gather their gear. Silara moved swiftly, pulling a sleek, silver device from her bag. She handed it to Sam, her expression intense. "This will guide us to the vault's entrance," she said. "But once we activate it, we'll have to pass the tests. Only one can enter at a time. The vault won't open until both of us are ready." Sam nodded grimly, feeling the weight of what was to come. He had no idea what these tests would entail, but the bond between him and Silara had grown stronger with each passing moment. Whatever happened, he wouldn't let her face it alone. They moved quickly, the distant sound of the enemy ships still echoing in the background. The rocky terrain of Vallith stretched out before them, desolate and silent. Sam couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, that every step they took brought them closer to an unseen danger. But the vault was within reach, and they were ready to face whatever trials it would throw at them. A lifetime bond. The winds of Vallith howled across the barren landscape, carrying with them the sharp scent of dust and the sting of ancient scars that marred the planet's surface. Sam and Silara made their way toward the vault's entrance, the path treacherous and steep. The device Silara had handed him earlier guided them like a beacon, its light flashing softly as they drew closer to their destination. Every step felt heavier, the weight of their mission pressing down on Sam's chest. Time was slipping through their fingers like sand, and the enemies who had once been his allies were closing in fast. The vault, hidden beneath the planet's surface, was not a simple entrance. It was a place of trials, a final test that would decide not just their fate, but the fate of all they held dear. Silara had warned him of the dangers, of the trials that would challenge their minds, their bodies, and their very souls. Only one could enter at a time, and only those who passed the tests would have access to the weapon within. Sam had no illusions about the stakes. This wasn't just a battle for survival. It was a battle for the future of both their worlds. Silara moved with the grace of someone who had lived 1,000 lifetimes, her steps measured, precise. The closer they got, the more Sam felt the weight of the moment. He glanced over at her, noticing the tension in her posture, the deep furrow of her brow as her eyes scanned the surroundings. "What happens if we fail?" Sam asked, his voice hoarse. His throat was dry, the thought of failure gnawing at him. What if they couldn't unlock the vault's secrets? What if they were too late? Silara didn't answer immediately. Instead, she kept walking, the device in her hand flashing ever brighter, as if it sensed their proximity to the vault. Finally, she stopped, looking at Sam with an intensity that sent a chill down his spine. "If we fail," she said quietly, "the storm will continue. The weapon will be lost forever, and Earth, your world, will fall into chaos. My people, my bloodline, will be completely erased from existence. There will be nothing left." The silence between them was thick, heavy with the gravity of her words. Sam nodded, his jaw clenched. There was no choice now. They had come too far, endured too much, to turn back. Ahead, the vault loomed, its entrance carved into the side of a jagged cliff, barely visible against the rocky terrain. The markings around the entrance were familiar, symbols Silara had shown him before, symbols that spoke of ancient power, of a lost civilization. It wasn't just a vault, it was a tomb, a monument to what had been lost. As they approached the entrance, the ground beneath their feet began to tremble. A low hum, like the heartbeat of the planet itself, filled the air, vibrating through Sam's bones. The vault was awakening, responding to their presence. Silara stepped forward, pressing the device against a series of symbols on the vault's surface. The markings glowed faintly, and the door slowly began to open, revealing a dark abyss beyond. Silara turned to Sam, her face etched with determination. "The final test is here," she said. "You must go first. The vault will test your resolve, your worth. If you fail, you cannot try again. Do you understand?" Sam nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. "I understand." Before he could say anything more, Silara placed a hand on his shoulder, her fingers cool but steady. She met his eyes, her violet gaze softening for the first time since they'd landed on Vallith. "This bond between us, it's more than I ever imagined," Silara said, her voice quieter now. "It's not just a link, Sam. It's a promise. A connection that transcends time, space, and species. No matter what happens, I want you to know that you have become a part of me. You have helped me carry the weight of my people's legacy. You have given me something I thought I'd lost forever. A chance." Sam's chest tightened. I didn't expect any of this. I didn't expect to be part of something this big." His words faltered, the weight of their journey settling over him. "But I'm here, Silara, and I'm not leaving you." She smiled, a small but genuine smile. "Then let's do this." With that, Sam stepped forward, crossing the threshold into the vault. The air inside was cold, unnaturally so. The walls were lined with intricate carvings, depicting the rise and fall of Silara's people, an ancient civilization that had once ruled the stars. As he moved deeper into the vault, the light from the device flickered, casting long, eerie shadows across the room. There were no guards, no defenses, only tests that would push him beyond his limits. The first test came quickly. The ground beneath Sam's feet shifted, revealing a vast chasm. Across the chasm, a narrow bridge stretched out, too narrow to cross without falling into the abyss below. The bridge was suspended by a single beam of light, and above it, an inscription glowed faintly, "Only the brave will cross." Sam hesitated, the depth of the chasm making his stomach lurch. But he remembered Silara's words. He had to prove himself. With a deep breath, he took a step onto the bridge. His heart pounded as he moved forward, each step feeling like it could be his last. The bridge swayed beneath his feet, the light growing brighter the closer he got to the other side. And then, as he stepped onto solid ground, the beam of light flickered, and the chasm vanished. The second test came as a riddle, an ancient puzzle embedded in the vault's walls. Sam studied it, his mind racing. He had no idea what the solution was, but something inside him urged him to keep going. The puzzle was not just a test of intellect, it was a test of heart. He had to trust his instincts, trust the bond he shared with Silara. Finally, the last test came, a test of loyalty. The vault presented a vision, one that showed the destruction of Earth, the annihilation of everything Sam loved. The vision taunted him, urging him to choose between his own survival and the safety of the world he had sworn to protect. Sam felt the weight of the choice on his shoulders. The temptation to save himself was strong, but the choice was clear. He turned away from the vision, his mind fixed on the woman who had become his ally, his friend. His connection to her transcended the choice. He would not let her, and Earth, fall into darkness. The vault's doors opened wide, and Sam stepped forward, finally unlocking the weapon that had the power to end the storm. He had passed every test, and now, together with Silara, he had secured the future of both their worlds. As Sam stepped back out into the light, Silara was waiting for him, her expression unreadable. He met her gaze, and in that moment, he understood. They had forged a bond that would last a lifetime, a bond that would transcend their past, their species, and the very stars themselves. They were no longer just two individuals. They were the last hope of two worlds, united by a promise to protect the future. And as the weapon powered up, ready to stop the storm and protect Earth, Sam knew one thing for certain. Whatever happened next, they would face it together.